Um, to me, it just sounds like this person decided to take up a whole project of herself, of the GSU or the ESU or whatever. But
Massachusetts University Hospital, yeah.
yeah, it's just super hard because she has to face a whole like stack of obstacles that are like an organization because like some people just don't respect each other. It's not that they don't like they hate each other. It's more like there's just not enough communication, and it's just more of that situation where you're getting more criticism based on your performance, but like the performance is poor because of the criticism.
Yeah. Yeah, so she took a new job or a different job in the same unit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let me pull. So the first question we have is, what are the root problems that Barbara Norris is facing? I mean, you kind of touched on one of them.
I mean, it's spelled out on the bottom of page 4. So there's 9 items there. It says our culture doesn't value collaboration as a team. The GSU cannot count on one another. So again, not a team. Our work isn't acknowledged, so they don't feel valued. Our job is becoming more administration instead of patient-centered. So they feel like the department has lost its focus. We do not have enough opportunity to learn and grow. So it's like we're too busy trying to do these tasks that we don't have time to actually grow and develop. Our performance review system is a mystery and is not. Oh, so the review doesn't their pay doesn't reflect like their performance. So reward good performances, that doesn't really happen. Many assignments have been given based on relationships. So there's reciprocity. We make little input on matters. Okay, so they don't feel valued again. And there's no one that's kind of like fighting for that department. So I mean, you could break it down into the supplemental reading into those 4 sections of whatever one desires. So essentially for acquire, it's social stuff. So like working together as a team, that's kind of the first part of it. Bond, I guess that's working together. Here, I wrote it down somewhere. Let me find it real quick. So there's bond, comprehend, acquire, and defend. Those are the 4 like main levels to like connect with people. That was the supplemental reading. So I think they're not really working together. They can't really count on each other as a team. That's bond. They don't feel valued, so it's comprehension. So it's like what I do matters to the overall group. So their actions have impact. That would be comprehend. Need actual reward system. So that's acquire, and that's also part of like training. I think they said training and stuff in there too. And then an advocate, so defend. So be able to like actually have a position to stand on to defend their position. So that's how I broke it down.
Okay.
Sorry, that was a lot.
No, you're good. I mean, I already wrote my write-up, and I mentioned all those points that you said right at the bottom of that page 4. I feel like when she did that meeting, or the like, what was it, after event or outside event?
Offsite.
Yeah, offsite. I can't remember what it's called. I didn't think she was expecting to get as much negativity as she was getting from the group. So, but I mean, it's good that she got what she heard. It'll help her be able to fix the problems.
And I think that's the hard part about doing those kind of meetings is like a managerial point of view is like, okay, what do you think the problems are? And honestly, that's the easiest thing is, oh, we're doing this wrong, we're doing that wrong, and this and this and that, right? So like in marketing standpoint, the customer knows what's wrong, but they don't know how to fix it, right? They don't necessarily know what they want, but they know what they don't want. So it's hard at a managerial standpoint to have these offsites and not just turn it into a bitch fest, really, just to like complain. So I think she was like, okay, great. These are the things wrong. How do we fix it? So I think that was kind of a good transition out of getting stuck into this kind of like negative cyclone.
Yeah, I liked the second part of that where it was talking about if she had, or if anybody in the group had solutions or suggestions.
Yeah.
And nobody did. I mean, I think in reality, people would have some solutions. They just didn't want to speak up in front of everybody.
It's just the point of like comprehension. It's just like, these people haven't backed me up before. Why should I like back them up?
Right.
No, I think that would be more bond. Comprehension would be like knowing why I have to do something instead of just like getting orders that you're like, oh, I need to do this, so this helps this person or this or that. You know what I mean? So it's like understanding the impact of your role as the whole unit.
Yeah. So, what do you guys think Barbara Norris did well in her first month as the nurse manager?
Well, I mean, she just did the offsite, right? So she, in the first month, all she's really done is like, okay, what needs to be fixed? Right. And the only thing that I read in there was like, hey, I'm going to try and have a comprehensive reward system, which would be acquire. So it's like, okay, you're addressing one of the 4 areas. I mean, that's good. And kind of what I said earlier is that she transitioned it from just a complaining session to, okay, what do we do about it now?
Yeah. Yeah, I also said the same thing. I just thought it was good that she was taking initiative on trying to change it also.
Yeah, it was pretty something when she even went to her mentor, and then her mentor even said, like, don't do it. It's going to be so hard on you. Just, like, basically save yourself from the frustrations. And I don't know if it was agonizing, but yeah, it's just she still was willing to do this. I don't know, maybe she was trying to prove something to herself, but, like, hey, when someone tells me, like, if someone I trust tells me no, then I kind of take that seriously.
Maybe she just sadomasochist, right? Joy's pain. No, I mean, realistically though, it's a great opportunity for her though too, right? So it's like, hey, don't do this. And if she can pull it off, right? If she can go in and have a measurable, dramatic change in this department as her first managerial position, like that's amazing, right? Yeah. So it's a great opportunity because no one else wants to touch it.
Right.
No one else wants it. So it's like, okay, I can get this, but it's going to suck with the intention of I'm going to make this better, and then I can leave to go do something better. So it's a great stepping stone, but you've got to want it.
Yeah, there's definitely a reward if she pulls everything together. Do you guys think she's a good choice for getting that position?
I definitely think if you put someone else who's not been working there for a while, then it's going to be harder. It's nearly impossible to find someone to do it. Right.
I think she was good in the sense that she knew what she was getting herself into, and she was accepting that, rather than just like finding someone off the streets, throwing him into that position. Like she knew what was going on, and she was willing to face it head on.
Yeah, and personally ready for the challenge.
Yeah.
She's not the young mom anymore. She's at a place in her life where she wants a little more challenge.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, my only concern too is it's like, okay, we know about her technical background, but we really don't know about her soft skills. You know what I mean? She is a nurse and she probably has some fairly good bedside manner, But the problem is whatever managerial skills. And for me, that's really where everything stands out, is that she can be a fantastic nurse, but that doesn't make her a fantastic, department manager, or, you know what I mean? Or, that she can run, 16 other nurses, whatever, or 33 other your staff members. So for me, it's like, she seems like a logical choice in those like hard skills, but I would be worried about those soft skills, about bringing that team together. But from the fact that she had an offsite and then started kind of talking about that, and be like, okay, what do we need to do to move forward? It seems like she does have that skill set. But for me, it's like, to determine, oh, it was a good choice, I would need to see the result of that, of those good leadership soft skills.
Yeah, you make a good point, because it doesn't mention anything about that in the reading.
What do you think she ought to do? What changes do you think she ought to make?
Well, I mean, I don't know specifically how, that runs. And so honestly, the changes are all kind of speculative, but obviously we're supposed to compare it to this secondary reading, which I've never had it broken down in those 4 sectors before, which really makes sense to me. So, I mean, she's already kind of addressed the acquire, but only in a small sense, right? So you have a reward system for doing better, which she said may or may not actually reflect in your paycheck. So there needs to be some sort of reward system there for the acquire, and a educational system, right? That was one of the 9 points that they brought up in the meeting. So they need to do that. Defend. She really needs to stand up and be an aggressive advocate for her staff.
Yes.
Right. That's what they feel like is really missing. And I think if that would pull the team together a lot, if she was like, no, it's like, I'm going to bat for you guys. Like, hey, what I mean? What are these things that you want? They give her feedback, and she goes to, the head, I don't know who the head of a hospital is, whatever, goes to them and is like, kind of like, hey, these are the things we want. We need to hire people because we're 5 people short, and this and that, what I mean? So being a good advocate is really where I see her on the defend. The comprehensive is, I feel like that's probably one of the more hard, like, aspects to change, because that's cultural, right? So as she's becoming an advocate, and she's starting to create a reward system that changes the culture, which is kind of the comprehension part of it. And she also said something about being more transparent about hiring and all those things, which would be comprehension too, right? So I think the small things that she's been saying are the first step, but honestly, seeing how those those things that get implemented, then you pivot to, okay, well, this didn't seem to work, or, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like, I could only see the first step, and then you would have to kind of see what the feedback is from that. And realistically, I don't know anything specific I would do for bonding, just as becoming more of a team, other than those 3 other things, right? That would help develop them as a team. I don't know. What do you think? Well, you brought it up, Cindy. What do you think they should do?
Okay, I'm just curious what everybody else is going.
No, I'm not hating on you. I was just.
I think one of the root problems is there's no team advocate, and that becomes her job. That is her main job, is to advocate for her team. I think she also needs to create a bond and help do things that encourage a bond. And while that the perks and compensation should be more based on reviews, there should be not just manager reviews, but peer reviews. I think that there should be some peer training. The ones that are getting the most perks and doing the best should be running helping to train the younger and less experienced nurses.
Well, what about the comment about their job is all about doing paperwork and not about the patients. I feel like if they spend all their time doing reviews of each other and training, then that's even more so away from, to the patients.
Well, they can hire a secretary. It was taught, that was brought up in the reading, that that's one of the options that they can do. But they need to move forward as a team. And if they find that paperwork is really what's bogging them down, they want to focus more on the patient care, they can hire people to, or they can, use some of the hours they're already allocated to this group to pay a secretary.
Well, and that's part of it. Is it's like, okay, so if we hire a secretary, that means you're going to have to give up those hours. You're going to have to work harder each hour you're here. That's how that end up working. So they're going to have less time to do peer reviews because they're going to have to do more patient time, right? So I don't disagree with you on, probably doing peer reviews or something like that. But I feel like every single one of them, they all kind of agree. It's like, well, we want to be about the patient. So shouldn't the reviews come mainly from the patient and not necessarily from each other? I think that they should be considered, but I think it's less important to what your peer thinks than what the patient thinks. True.
But they are already getting reviews from patients. They are getting reviews from managers. They're not getting very much in the way of reviews from peers. And I don't see a lot in the way of self-review. I don't see, the lady's doing all her continuing education on her own dime. That is something that the hospital benefits from is the expertise of their staff. That is something that the hospital, I think, ought to be paying for. So, and that is something, that way their compensation is, commensurate with their level of training.
Have you ever done a self-review before?
Yeah.
They're the worst.
Yeah, well, I think I'm
the worst.
I'm my own worst critic. And I actually welcome, performance reviews just so I can see, a perspective other than my own. Between the two, you can figure out what actually needs to be done. But yeah, they're not easy. But they'll help me to, measure up.
No, I personally, I think self-reviews are slightly insulting and a waste of time, realistically. Because for me, if I'm not already doing that on a constant basis, and that you say that I need to sit down and officially do that, I feel that it's mildly insulting that you don't think that I already have an internal filter system for trying to be better every day that I'm there. So personally, I hate them. I think they're super stupid. I did it to kind of check a box before, to like, oh, if you want to move up here, do one of these, it looks good and whatever. Okay, I did it, and it was kind of like a great thing, and it was just another box to check, and it was kind of a waste of time. Well, so for me, it's like,
it wasn't like that. So maybe it's just how it's administered is different.
Maybe.
For me, one-on-one time with the CEO to say, when he says, how do you think you're doing? What are you doing? That was meaningful to me. But then that was the nature of my job. And it was the kind of thing where it was, here, do this job. We don't care how you do it. It just needs to get done. And so I was responsible for developing my own job. So it was a unique situation.
Well, and that's different between somebody like, well, how do you think you're doing? And then doing a full-on, personal review that's a written document that'll be in your file and things like that. So, I mean, having those conversations, as a manager, to be, as Barbara Norris, be like, hey, how you doing? And kind of touching base. I think that's more of a making sure that her comprehension tools that she's using to increase that portion are working, right? It's like, oh, I feel like I'm doing really good here, because it helps this, and this. Or if it's like, I don't know, you know what I mean? It's kind of like, okay, well, do you feel like this is helping this or whatever? So almost, I feel like the point of a self-review isn't necessarily for that person, but for the manager to see if the tools that they're implementing are working for the staffs.
Exactly.
So I kind of want to go back just a little bit. So in the reading, it said the economy wasn't great. Isn't that right?
Yeah.
Downfall. So does that mean that, what is it, GSC or the hospital, wherever they're working, that means that they're on a budget, right?
Yeah.
So would it be difficult for Barbara to hire another person or to give increasing wages? And
Well, see, there's some conflicting pieces of information because they're on a hiring freeze.
Yeah.
So they can't hire anybody, even though the staff is, they've lost some people and then they can't gain anybody back. That doesn't make sense.
right.
But yet, yeah, she was talking about, oh, if we hire someone, you're like, wait.
Yeah.
There's a hiring freeze. So.
Okay.
And let's see. Okay, on middle of page 4, we need someone to process paperwork on Saturday afternoons. I can immediately bring that back to a staff meeting and say, this is what we have for full-time equivalent, FTE. We can either hire a nurse or we can take some of that money and hire a secretarial assistant. What do you want to do? It's your choice. This is how much money we have. We can take a little bit of the nursing FTE. We can hire a secretarial assistant, but we're going to lose a little nursing time. But this is what we have to work with. So there is some flexibility there while there's hiring freeze. But I guess if 5 RNs have quit, that my understanding was they have the money, in the system allocated to those positions. Maybe they can use that money.
Yeah.
But it also would make sense that it's like, okay, I have X amount of hours for my department. If I choose to use those hours for OT, it shouldn't matter. Right? That's how I choose to do it.
Yeah.
Correct.
And it shouldn't matter either. I totally agree with you. I just feel like there is some conflicting evidence in here, right? At the very beginning, we said there's a hiring freeze. Yet later on, she's saying, oh, we could hire someone with the FTE hours that we have for our department. But I'm like, well, you can't hire anybody. And then they're like, oh, we don't want to do any OT. And so we actually bring someone, a temp in. And I'm just like, if I'm the department manager, it's like, well, you know what? I'm going to eat that overtime in our FTE hours just because we actually get more done. So it's a waste of time to hire these other people. The same thing that she's doing with the secretary. You know what I mean? It's like, well, I feel like it's a better use of those hours if we hire a secretary than, have another nurse. So I don't understand why, that can't apply to overtime hours as well.
Right. I think something also she could do is, like at the beginning, it mentioned her manager, her boss. I think something good she could do is sit down with that guy or girl, I can't remember who it was, and just kind of explain the situation, the problems. And because he said like he was really trusting her that she could turn it around. And so if he really wants it to be turned around and she has a plan, then he should be open to expanding things or working with things and changing it. That way things can get better in the unit.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of like in the reading, right? When she had to sit down with one of the CEO or the members of the board, and he was like, what are you doing? You're pissing people off and you're only, 2 weeks in or whatever it is. And she's like, well, these are growing pains. If you want me, you brought me in to change things, and it's going to suck. So you can either butt out or fire me because you hired me to do this specific job. And I think that kind of mentality applies here. Is it's kind of like, well, if you want me to turn this around, we're going to have to make some fundamental changes. So I'm going to need your support on me trying to make these changes, because obviously what's happening now and what you guys are doing now isn't working. And it's not about building a kumbaya circle to just make everyone feel better. Like, these are fundamental changes that need to happen to the department. And so I don't disagree with you that she needs to sit with her boss and be like, hey, listen, but it's kind of, excuse the phrase, but kind of a come to Jesus meeting with him. Like, hey, listen, like, this is not working. You've got to trust me and allow me to make these changes if you want any of this to be different.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, another thing she can do also is point out all the consequences of not doing it, which I think there's quite a few.
Which is they're going to be right where they are. They already know what the consequences look like.
And then I noticed, like, in the, what was it, the introduction for this week or the announcements, they're like, in your action plan, you can't just say, oh, if you don't do this, then people are going to quit. But I mean, ultimately that could be something that happens, I mean, I've seen it with my dad and his job, So,
well, even before that, honestly, an unhappy employee is very expensive. Seriously, right. They are so expensive. I mean, I've been that employee. Like, there's been times where I've screw them. They're not really doing anything to help me. And how little work I did, just like the bare minimum. If they told me to do it, that was the only time I did something. So it's like, well, serious? I mean, come on, everyone's been there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And think about that. Think about how expensive that is. They're paying you, and you're like, well, I'm only going to do exactly what I'm told. And if they don't micromanage, then it's not going to get done. That's expensive. Right. So ultimately, before them quitting would be a benefit, because then you could hire someone that would buy into the culture.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh man, I was just thinking about, there was this one girl that she was like constantly late, and she was always like, her till would always be off. So we were thinking she was taking money, but we couldn't. Every time we audited her till, she was always right on the money. But like anytime like we weren't doing that, she was always off. So we thought she was stealing money, but we could never really prove it. And so it was like this perpetual cat and mouse game. And she knew when she was like about to get fired, and then she would like act all like she would be like the perfect employee for like a couple weeks. And then she thought she was in the clear, and then start like kind of being sketchy again. And it was just this employee we couldn't like get rid of because we couldn't get enough evidence, because right when we started like opening an investigation, she would like straighten up.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm thinking about how expensive that is, right? So how long was she slowly siphoning money? Potentially. I don't know if she was. She probably was, but whatever.
Did she have a friend in management or something?
What was that?
Did she have a friend in management tipping her off to when she was going to get?
No, you have to notify them. Like, there's like, you have to be like, hey, you did this. And then it's like, okay. And then you sign a piece of paper acknowledging that we talked to you. And then after that, she's like, oh crap, if I get another one of these write-ups, then I'm hosed. So it was just a part of how they like, setting the expectation and then having her, try and meet those expectations. So, I mean, essentially we warned her, but that was part of the protocol. But yeah, think about how expensive that is, right? She's doing the bare minimum. She's probably wasn't interacting with customers that awesome. And you know what I mean? It was just like, well, what do we do? It would be saving grace if she quit so that we could hire someone that did care.
Yeah.
So I don't think having your employees quit is the worst option. That's all I was trying to say, is I think them staying and hating their job is probably way worse for the company than them quitting.
Right.
Well, and then talk about like the infectious, like bad comments, right? And I think that's part of the issues that's happening here is someone's like, man, this person's making me angry. And they're like, yeah, you know what else sucks? And it just kind of like perpetuates this culture of complaining, which I've seen before in other jobs too, is it's like anytime employees got together, just like, hey, we need to do this or whatever, and they're like, yeah, you know what, management needs to take care of that, or they need to do this sort of. And it just like, anytime anybody got together, it was about complaining.
those employees are really miserable to be around.
Well, what if those employees are the whole staff?
Yeah. It's
I
miserable.
mean, that's what's happening here, right?
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah.
So I think if they all quit and she could hire new people, that would be way more beneficial starting from scratch than trying to fix the staff that's already there. So yeah, quitting is not the worst option.
So I guess we've kind of covered everything, but for the action plan, what are you guys like steps? What do you think should be her plan of action here?
I'm
I think
curious
it's good
to hear
that
what you guys think of. Oh, sorry, go ahead, man.
Oh, I was gonna say I think it's good that she kind of got the ball rolling to begin with. That's obviously step one. But then at the very end, let me go find it. It kind of like the last, like on page 5, there's like a couple sentences or something, and it talks about her going back to tell her boss, that was waiting for a status report. I think it's really good about having that off-site meeting, and she can go back and she can tell all those things to the boss. And back to the point of if somebody quits, and that, in a roundabout way of being a good thing. If somebody did quit, she can go tell the boss, like, hey, like, this unit is not in a good spot right now. We just had so-and-so quit, so now we're down even another person. Kind of giving her more,
Ammunition.
Yeah. More ammunition to be able to get the hospital to kind of make some exceptions to let them hire more people or give bonuses or, whatever it is, different types of rewards and certain things like that. So I think she's on the right track. It's a pretty big problem to fix. She can't do it like overnight or anything. But I think she's on track. I think honestly, the meeting she's going to have with her boss is going to be super important. She needs to be pretty firm and let him know that she needs some more leeway, against the hiring freeze or whatever it is. She needs to be able to do some things that are currently restricted in order to fix it all.
So what do you suggest if she goes to the management and they say, you know what, we agree with you on staffing. You have 40 hours and you only have staff to cover half of that. You can hire 3 more people or whatever it is, but we can't do bonuses. We don't have any money for that. To do that, we have to pull from somewhere else, and that's not going to happen. So if you want to do a reward system, that's great. It can't be monetary. What would you do then?
Well, first, that's a win that you let you hire more people. So you can kind of go back to your team and let your team know that you guys had a small victory and you can hire more people and kind of spread the work out a little bit. And then that should obviously increase morale a little bit. And then maybe think of some other kind of reward system or something. Even if it was something simple like employee of the week or employee of the month or something like that. Just kind of something to get, camaraderie up a little bit. I don't know, something like that.
I personally would instead of going for the bonuses, bring back OT. Just because I've seen the side of like being shorthanded and just completely going through like all the crap and back. And I think it would be really helpful that like to have like everyone kind of come together, not necessarily like hating each other, but like hating one thing. You know what I'm saying? Like it's kind of the weirdest thing. Like
no, so they say that in the military. So like during basic training, that's some of the mentality of the drill sergeants. It's like, hey, to build bonds, they all have to hate something, and if that's me, I'm going to be that person.
Yeah. So like, I don't know. Like to me, I thought about like this. I watched Dave Chappelle, and it was just the weirdest thing because it was just hilarious because he was like talking about like it's weird how like Trump was like this person that made all of us come together and hate him, and it's just like so weird. It's just like, he's maybe got a point there, but like it's still just the funniest thing. It's just like people work better as a team when they hate something.
They have a common goal, and even if that common goal is hating someone, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, bonuses can sound good, but like I think it wouldn't really necessarily like. It's probably another step for later on to me. That's what I'm trying to say.
No, I disagree. I think it's one of those things that she needs to start trying to implement now, but I don't think that bonuses are a realistic plan. Having a non-monetary reward system is really important. I think probably one of the better ideas, and this is the best I could come up with, is having if you meet trick of customer satisfaction or patient satisfaction or whatever it is, that you get to pick your schedule for the week, right? And it seems like kind of it doesn't have a lot of weight, but you think about it, they're nurses, right? They're like on call, or they have all these things in their life that's going on. Dude, if they could pick their schedule for a week, that means they could probably end up going to their kid's soccer game, or going to something or doing something with their family that they typically wouldn't be able to otherwise, because the schedules suck for nurses, man. It's awful. So being able to pick that for a week, that would be fantastic, and realistically, that has a zero monetary value for the company, right? It doesn't make any, never mind to them, but it's something that's really boosts morale and it actually work towards. I think that's one of the things that I learned, sort of, I worked at for a long time, is that giving non-monetary rewards is very undervalued. But it's really hard because you've got to find something that they care about. And that was one of the things that actually, like being able to pick your schedule, and also like wearing whatever you want. Not having to wear a uniform. For some reason, that was like a huge motivator. Again, it's a grocery store, so it's like high school, college age kids. But the fact that they're told that they have to wear a shirt or whatever, they really hate it. So being like, okay, if you get so many points doing this or sell so many whatever it is, you can wear whatever you want for a day, a week, whatever it is. That was one of the few things that they actually cared about. So anyways, just because reward for good performance, that could mean a bunch of different things. And if you're limited to what you can do monetarily, there's some interesting creative ideas that can really really motivate people that you wouldn't expect.
Yeah, we did that in my last job. I was the head of the receiving department in this warehouse. And over the summer, we hired a team of high school kids to kind of move some boxes around for us and stuff. And every couple of weeks, we get a big old container shipped to us from China. We'd have about 700 or 800 boxes. They each weighed about 25 pounds in it. And it wasn't on pallets. It was just stuffed in like a moving van or something.
Ugh.
Yeah. So we had the high school kids unload all that and put it on the pallets for us and stuff. And I guess there's a tiny bit of monetary to it, not much. We'd buy them pizza and Gatorades, when they do that. That only cost like $40 or something. But then we would time them on how fast they could do it. And we kind of keep like a leaderboard of like which guys were there that day and how fast they did it, and kind of get it down to like a time per pallet kind of a thing, and make it like a competition. And they loved it. Like, it got them stoked. It seriously like did wonders for them.
Yeah, competition. And funny enough, like having them compete against each other does build camaraderie sometimes.
Yeah, it totally does.
Not always. It's got to be fairly strategic.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I've seen that where it's like, oh, this team against that team, and they start talking crap, and that's like, they love it, right? Like then it becomes about like talking trash, you know what I mean? And it's like part of the fun of it.
Yeah.
So my other thing was, what do you guys think about the bond, right? So how would you build a bond in that team, and specifically trying to, like, what policies would you put in place to specifically target bond, right? Because I feel like we've really talked about what is it? Defend, acquire, less on acquire, and comprehend, but I don't think we've really talked about bond. So what do you guys think you would try and implement to specifically target bond?
Sorry, I had maintenance knock on my door. What was the question?
Well, I feel like we've talked about everything but the category of bond. So what policies would you put in place to specifically target bond?
Bond. I have the thing right here. I think it's just kind of evolving the evaluations, like we said, because it's just like it's a very toxic situation where you give like these evaluations that fall more into the criticism category, which it could be constructive, and yes, but in this case it isn't, meaning that people are underperforming, and it's not like entirely like, oh, this person just completely underperforms because of what I've like told them. It's more like what you like. It's kind of like the word of mouth of like what people take of you, like, you know what I'm saying? Because I remember like people literally calling out on the off site. Yeah, it's on the page 3 at the bottom. Like these people are like pretty much good employees from what I'm seeing, and then they still wouldn't be good enough like off paper. Like these people would be like, this person's annoying, or like just kind of an inconvenience to these people, which it shouldn't feel that way. It should feel rather the opposite. And if we can basically help people like make those evaluations, like if I recommended having like two-sided, so like the people who are being evaluated can give an evaluation to the others who are evaluating them. I'm saying evaluations so many times, but like, you know, like it gives feedback for both ends of the party, and it can like not necessarily like keep it's kind of like a checks and balance, and not like really like an abusive situation.
Yeah. So if you look on page 4, the bottom of page 4 of the extra reading, there's a kind of a chart there. So the drive for bond, they say the primal lever is culture, and the actions would be foster mutual reliance and friendship among coworkers, value collaboration and teamwork, encourage sharing of best practices. So how would you implement that in this job setting?
With
Those like
the element
actions.
of collaboration and openness. So like obviously like the friendship and all that jazz, it doesn't start with just like some like simple task. It kind of happens over time. I can't really have any control of that. I mean, it's kind of like we give something to them, and then eventually they kind of make it for themselves. I mean, it's not like I'm gonna be like, hey, you be friends with her, and just, you know, like you can do it in ministering and all that, but you can't really do it like in a
But you can foster a culture of teamwork, right? So if we think about Zappos, you know, what did they do to develop their culture, right? One of the things that they developed is in the hiring process, it's like, okay, we will give you $10,000 to quit right now, right? And the reason they do that is because they want people that want to be there, right? That's not there just for a paycheck, but it's there to care about the company. So, and in that way, that's how they develop the culture of teamwork, where it's like, no, this is the type of person we want, and if you don't want to be a part of that, take this money and leave. You know what I mean? So for me, I struggle with trying to figure out ways of, so how do you build friendship, or, you know, stimulate that type of friendship in this type of environment? Is it ER? It's not the ER. It's just they're just like a nurse's.
It's like the general surgery unit.
Okay, but they interact with each other, right? Because one of the things is you can't count on others to help you. Okay, so what things would you need to implement to say that, hey, you know, to help foster that trust in each other?
I think one of the big issues is the veteran staff are frustrated with the new staff for bugging them all the time.
Yeah.
I don't have enough time to do my own job. And the new staff are frustrated with the veterans because they're like, hey, like, you know, we need a little bit more training. We need a little bit of help. So you could implement some kind of a system where, you know, at the end of the week or the month or every other week or whatever, you know, all the new staff vote on which veteran staff helped them the most. And the veteran staff can vote on which new staff, you know, picked up on the most stuff or, you know, was most helpful in another way. And the winner of that could, you know, get the reward you were talking about where they get to pick their own schedule for the next, you know, pay period or whatever it is.
Yeah. I didn't think about that. Like having the staff vote amongst themselves on who did the best.
Yeah.
Right,
That'll also, it'll promote the veteran staff that want to help out more because that's a big issue right now.
Mhm.
I think that's good because I mean one of the big pitfalls here too is negative comments, right? Where it's like, oh, review this person. I mean, what they're doing now is I don't like it when they do this. I hate this. They're doing this wrong. This is right. They're doing all the knots, and then they're not doing anything positive. And you can say, oh, for every negative comment, you need 2 positive ones or whatever. I feel like it's too easy to walk away, which is like, okay, well, I said all these negative things too. So, you know, maybe that reward system that's built on the positives of those other people. So you're focusing on the positive, not necessarily the negatives of what people aren't doing, but the awesome things that they are doing.
Yes.
Anybody have any last comments or anything they wanted to say?
Not on my end. I'm ready to go to my exam.
There's only so much you can say about a 4-page paper.
Yeah. Without just like guessing.
Yeah.
Yeah. What did you guys think about the supplementary one, the employees, the motivation of employees?
That's good stuff.
Mhm.
I think for me, I've never heard it broken down into those 4 parts before. And I've definitely seen people just do one or the other and it not work as well. And how that compares to people that are like, oh, those are an amazing manager, and how I see that they actually tried to do all 4.
Yeah.
On several levels from family on up.
Yeah.
There's definitely it reminds me of the cool human resources class I took. I mean, if any of you guys are ever in a
That's
kind
an
of
oxymoron. A cool human resource class. I'm just joking. I'm just kidding.
amazing. I don't necessarily like have anything like planned so far, but human resources is definitely a strong candidate for a career. Not like my whole career, but a career.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it definitely helps kind of like have those motivators, the intrinsic and the extrinsic. You kind of derive into these kinds of points, the 4 points.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting because there's definitely, I definitely see the application of these 4 like components specifically for HR. But if you think about it, you know, management is a broader, part of what a manager does is HR stuff, right? Making sure that, you know, the employees are healthy, happy, and doing their job, right?
Mm-hmm. And the funny part is that HR could probably take maybe like 5% of the heat while the managers take the 95. Just because like the real person you should be like having a fight with is HR, because they're the ones who like can help you fight and get a fighting chance because they're with corporate rather than
Or
like,
level.
yeah, exactly. So anyways, if there's nothing else, I can leave, right? I'm sorry. I'm like not just because I really need this done by tomorrow.
Yeah, no, I think we're good. I got to get ready to go here too. I got to meet.
All right, guys. Well, cool non-official meeting. I'll see you guys next week.
All right.
Okay.
See ya.
All right, sounds good.